What's your thoughts on that? Hot take.
Spend the money, you'll get your return. Absolutely. Find a broker that can be supportive. Find a brokerage that has the tools and the resources available to you. You know, the average agent thinks that they need to do everything.
Welcome to the Brainwave, where brilliant minds collide. I'm your host, David Peterson, and in this podcast, we explore the world of real estate and small business marketing. The Brainwave Real Estate Marketing Podcast is here to inspire you with actionable tips, expert interviews, and cutting-edge insights. Ride the brainwave and get those marketing neurons firing. All right, everyone, welcome to the show. Bradford Bateman is my guest today, and we are super glad to have him here. Bradford's been doing real estate for just over 11 years and been a managing broker for just over 4 years. So he's got a lot of experience and a lot I think he can help teach the agents. So we're welcoming Bradford today. We're glad to have you.
Well, thanks, David. I appreciate that awesome introduction. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So how did you get started into real estate?
Well, in full disclosure, at the time I was in gas station and convenience store management. I saw racetrack break ground less than a mile and a half down the road from the station that I had been managing for over 7 years. So once that happened, I saw the writing on the wall, and I knew that the gentleman that I worked for was not going to continue to try to compete with a business that large. And around the same time, I had gone over my parents' house, and my dad had brand new matching Harley Davidsons in the garage.
Oh, nice.
And I said, Dad, where did those come from? And he goes, well, your stepmom Deb had a good sale in real estate. She bought these cash. So that night I was in real estate school, and the rest is kind of history.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that most realtors that get in the business, they have a story like that, or they hear a story where someone they know has a big windfall of cash. Now, maybe the downside of that is that you have a lot of people want to jump into real estate without knowing what to expect, or they don't set goals, or they don't understand, how to get started.
Absolutely.
So that can be a big issue. But so you went from selling real estate, and you did that for 11 years successfully. What kind of made you say, okay, now it's time to become a broker?
Well, I remember that I got the phone call to be recruited or hired as an agent here with Coldwell Banker, and I had just gotten my broker's license at the time, and I was fulfilling my continuing education requirements for that license. And I met with a broker and the RVP, or regional vice president at the time. They made me an outstanding offer. But I had to politely decline because my goals and my ambitions were to get back into management. So I said, I thank you very much for your offer. I'm flattered. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to decline because having my broker's license, my next step, I want to go and manage an office. Well, that must have resonated with them because 2.5 years later, when the broker of Cape Coral stepped down, they called and asked me to interview for the position. So I took them up on their offer to interview and went through the 7 interview process before I was finally awarded the position in the office.
Well, congratulations. How did you find your skill sets? Like, what skills transferred over well from real estate, and which skills were totally new that you had to develop, and which ones did you have from before?
Well, I must say, coming from a background of management and gas stations and convenience stores, a lot of those same skills and attributes that helped attribute to my success there carried over and have helped me with my success here in the world of real estate management. The other thing that has definitely attributed to my success has been cold calling. When I was an agent, I cold called. I went after terminateds and expireds, and that was my main source of business. So I still have to make time for prospecting today, but instead of prospecting for sellers, I'm now prospecting for agents to build our office.
And so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about it from the agent perspective. When you're meeting with new agents, seeing new agents, what's the biggest challenge a new agent has when they're joining a brokerage? What do you see?
I think time blocking and time management. The average agent thinks that they need to do everything. And while doing everything may be good and beneficial, at the same time, it can also be detrimental. My biggest struggle early on in my career was not keeping my blinders on and maintaining my focus. I always let a new agent know that there's a million different ways to earn an income in the world of real estate. You have to pick two, stay focused on those two, and watch your business grow from there.
So that's a new agent. What about more experienced agents? What would you say? What's the biggest mistake that experienced agents are making?
Not building and maintaining a database and staying in communication with their database. Your past customers can be your greatest source of business. So we need to make sure that we stay top of mind with them. And the best way to do that is to maintain that database so that you can maintain that open communication.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Obviously, I come from the marketing side and sales, those sales calls. That's why I love being a fly on the wall whenever you're doing meetings, because I love listening to those sales calls. But once they have some deals under their belt, I'm often shocked at how many agents, they just don't put those people in a database and follow up with them. So if you're not using a CRM, which is a customer relationship manager, then you are missing out on the potential. It's like you build a foundation and then you forgot to put the house on the top.
Right.
You did all that work getting the deal the first time. What about in 5 years when they're ready to move again? And I think a lot of experienced agents do miss out on that as well. So I agree with you 100% there. So when you're talking to a lot of new agents that are coming into it, they have a lot of questions for you. What do you think are the most important things agents should look for when they're looking for a brokerage?
Find a broker that can be supportive. Find a brokerage that has the tools and the resources available to you. I think that there's nothing more important than continuing to build your education. In my opinion, real estate school does two things. One, it teaches you enough to pass the real estate exam and get licensed. And two, other than that, it scares the crap out of you and makes you think you're going to end up in handcuffs for everything. So there's a lot more training required once you officially get your license. So education would definitely be one of the most important foundations.
Yeah, I remember my real estate exam. It was like, how many meets and bounds are in a township? I'm like, when am I going to use this information?
Exactly.
And then you get into real estate and you're like, that did nothing for me. That's kind of a two-edged sword, because the barriers to entry in real estate legally are very low, right? You take a 6-week course and you're take an exam and you pass it. But learning the business, I would say the barrier is very high. Mm-hmm. We have a very high turnover in our industry because, now this is just an opinion, you tell me what you think, but part of the problem is kind of what we talked about before, is they don't have a game plan set up. They don't really know where they're going to get leads from. They're just like, I'll figure it out as I go. And I think that's not good enough, in my opinion. Like you got to have a strategy going forward. And you said stick to things and stick with it. I like that same idea. Mine's a little similar. It's pick 3 things and stick with it and get good at them. So maybe cold calls are on your list. And if you're a new agent, you probably should do cold calls, because
absolutely,
you're going to learn the objections real quick, and you're going to talk with people who actually want to sell their home. They just don't realize it's with you yet. So I'm a big fan of that as well. What's your thoughts on like 100% brokerages or brokerages that are like 100% online or virtual.
So if a office or brokerage is giving you 100% of their commission and the commission that's earned, how are they able to afford additional tools and resources to help you continue to build your business? And then what is your cost going to be to build your business as well? Because every cost that you accrue will be yours solely, because the company is not supplementing anything. So as a new agent, or even a seasoned agent, I don't agree with the 100% model whatsoever. You know, there's a lot of things that other companies and other options like Coldwell Banker can offer you. And then, you know, a lot of these 100% companies, they haven't been around since 1906 the way we at Coldwell Banker have.
Yeah, and one thing that I see working here in the Coldwell Banker office is I see just that one-on-one interaction that you have with your clients. Now, this is a true story. I didn't bring this up ahead of time, but you went out with an agent today, and you actually went on a listing presentation, a newer agent, but you wanted to make sure that they had the tools and resources to get the job done. Now, this is not typical. Most brokers are not this involved in this awesome. Bradford is. He's one in a million. But, I mean, in my opinion, you know, I think that's one of the most powerful things that you offer here generally, and also generally like that they could look for when they join a brokerage like Coldwell Banker. So,
and one of the reasons why I can do that and why agents trust me to do that is because I'm a non-competing broker. I can no longer physically help sellers sell or buyers buy. You know, I do have a large book of business, and occasionally some of that business comes back to me, but I can't directly help those customers anymore. I have to refer it out to our agents. So if an agent needs me to accompany them at the listing appointment, it's at no threat to them. They don't feel that I'm going to steal that business from them, where I can't say that same about our competition.
Yeah, I've never been with a brokerage that that did a competing broker, but in my mind, I never wanted to be. I'm like, wait a second. So I'm competing against the broker for deals. I'm
Right.
like, I want a broker that's there to help me, not, you know, compete with me. So I never understood that. But speaking of collaboration and competing, what's your thoughts on teams? Should new agents look at joining a team, or should they look to be going solo? I mean, there's a lot of hand-holding in those first couple of deals. Can it be worth it for some people to be on a team?
It depends on the personality type. Now, when I first started, I did not join a team initially, and if I could go back and start all over, that would be the first thing that I would seek out was a team. Because when I did join a team, I felt like it was going to real estate grad school, if you will, because I learned how to prospect, I learned how to build a database, I learned how to follow up, I learned objection handling, I learned the tools and the resources that were vital to my success in the business.
Yeah, and here's another thought I have for agents. If I could go back, I don't know if I would be on a traditional team per se, but right now we have a lot of agents that are aging, a lot of in the baby boomer community, and they're going to be ready to retire in a few years. If I could start all over, one strategy I'd be on is I'd look to do a team with someone that's very well established, maybe a solo agent or maybe one other person on their team. And then maybe look to say, hey, in the next 5 years, they're probably getting close to retirement. So if it were me, I'd go talk to the broker and be like, hey, are there any agents that are kind of getting close to retirement age? Because maybe I can take over that book of business when they go, and then they can teach you the ropes. And I think a lot of people, you and I included, you know, why we're doing this podcast, so we want to give back, you know, because
Right.
we've gotten a lot out of the industry, and so we want to give back, and that's why we're sharing this with you. I think a lot of experienced agents are like that as well, where they're not afraid to answer your silly questions, right? Because you don't know what you don't know in the beginning, and that test sure as heck didn't get you where you need to go.
And David, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I am a huge fan of building a team, and a lot of agents get into this business because they want to be an entrepreneur. But as a solo agent, you're an entrepreneur to a point, but you're also self-employed. And once you establish a team and an entity, now you're building a business for yourself, and now you're really able to be a business owner. And if, as long as you name that team something other than your own name, you're really building a saleable entity. So, if you wanted to get out of the business a few years from now, you could literally sell your team, and I assure you, you could find a buyer for that team. Or the other thing is, you mentioned retirement. If you build a team, you could go into retirement or semi-retirement and still have residuals coming in for income into your retirement. I mean, it's a win-win for all.
Now, just for those who might not know how that works, when you're not a licensed realtor, you can't get referrals from real estate. So, for example, let's say I know a realtor, Bob, and I say, look, I'm going to refer my friend to you. Can you give me a piece of your commission? You actually can't do that. That's outlawed. It's part of like the non-competing and business practices where you're not colluding with other businesses to price people. Anyways, you'll learn about that on your test. But basically, only realtors can get commission from other realtors. So if I'm a realtor and I refer my brother who lives in another state to a realtor, then I would ask that agent, hey, I've got a lead. Do you mind paying a 25% commission or 30% in some cases? But yeah, that's how it works. You can, like Bradford said, you can become a realtor. And once you hit that retirement, you can still be making, as long as your license is active, you can still be making commissions from your book of business. But again, that's the big mistake. A lot of agents don't keep that book of business. They don't have that database. So it's hard for them to say, hey, I'm the originating agent on this deal. So speaking of, just got a few more questions here.
Please.
The agents that are thinking about getting into the business, what separates agents that get into the business and make it and they do well, and which ones are going to be with this, the shaft in the wind? What separates the winners and losers? Because what I'm seeing, I see a lot of agents lose. After 1 year, 2 years, they give up. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, what's the difference? What's the difference between someone who gives up, never gets started, or in those that get started and succeed?
Well, you have to make sure that you remain coachable, and have the mindset that I still carry the mindset that I will never know everything in this business, and I feel that that's what keeps me here. And going back to the time management and time blocking, you need to maintain and take control of your schedule. I live by the motto, if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. So if I make an appointment with somebody, I can guarantee you that you'll receive a calendar invite from me. Because if not, don't plan on me showing up to that meeting, because
Right.
If it's not my calendar, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. So I love that, being coachable. I guess I'm going to delve into that a little bit. What do you think of like Tom Ferry and other like coaches for hire? What's your thoughts on that? Hot take.
Spend the money, you'll get your return. Absolutely. But with those scripts, if you're not going to actually pay for the coaching and you're going to try to dive into it by yourself, do not memorize those scripts word for word. Instead, internalize them, make them your own, because if you just try to regurgitate them word for word, you're going to sound like a lot of the other new agents in there, and you will quickly get hung up on, and the conversation will be shut down.
Yeah. I guess I take a little bit different approach on coaches. I think if you have a mentor or someone on your team, they could be your coach, or as I call them, an accountability buddy, right?
Yeah.
Someone who you can be accountable to, someone that you can, make sure that you're doing the tasks that are essential. Because we get caught up in a lot of like advertising, or, you get calls every day from people trying to sell you leads or sell you this or sell you that. And you get pulled in so many directions. So you need somebody to focus your efforts and attention. And I really like that from a mentor or a teammate, I think.
And I like what you have to say on that too. And if you don't have the income to invest in a coach, then a mentor is a great option for you, because it's not going to cost you any money up front. It may cost you a referral fee at the end of the deal or something like that, but the mentor is not going to make any money until you make money. And don't think, one of my biggest mistakes early on in my career was I thought that I could put $1 into the business and take $2 out. That's not the case. You have to do the work. So if you're going to spend the money on the coach, make sure that you remain coachable and you do what's suggested of you by the coach. Otherwise, you're just throwing your money away. And in my own opinion, it's a lot more fun to go to the casino and throw your money away, because then at least you're having a good time while you're doing it.
Yeah, I like that. So kind of a side note here. What's your favorite book? Doesn't have to be real estate related, but...
That's a really good question.
Put you on the spot.
I don't know if I have a favorite book, so to say. If I were to pick up a book, I need to be able to learn something from it. I don't enjoy reading fiction whatsoever. Most of the material that I read is directly related to real estate or sales in general, because if I'm going to invest the time, I need to be able to get something out of it, and what I get out of it, I need to be able to make money off of it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Bradford. Where is a good place for people to look you up? They see this episode on YouTube and Spotify and all the places, but where can they find you? I know you have a website, that's bradfordbateman.com.
Absolutely.
Is that the best place for people to reach out to you if they want to?
Sure. You can reach out to me at bradfordbateman.com. You can reach me directly at 239-273-8842 or bradford.bateman@cbrealty.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Just a wealth of knowledge. I love talking to you. I always get a little tidbit every time I visit this office, so it's been fun for me. And yeah, I'm certain that there's going to be someone out there that hears something in today's podcast that really resonates with them. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. We'll catch you next time.